TLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
To the Under the Hood show. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood show. Russ Evans not here today, but Shannon Nordstrom is.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
To answer your automotive questions, I should have added that in there. I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. We're without Russ today, so that means there's more opportunity for callers.
We're looking for it.
Yeah,
I always love when people call in with super technical stuff when Russ is gone.
Mm-hmm. That's my favorite too.
Because I just scramble and don't know what to do. It's kind of like when I'm golfing and I'm stuck in the sand.
And you'll talk around it. Usually around it the right way.
I probably don't give myself enough credit, but. Yeah, Russ is out, and he, like a lot of Americans, has been dealing with some crud going through their family, and he's doing well, but just got to get himself feeling better. We had to convince him not to either show up like fully masked in like a spacesuit and think he could still do it, or use some of the technology that he created and installed to do a link, which he said he thought he could do that, and then maybe a call in, and then maybe. I don't know. What other methods? We got plenty of methods.
We do have plenty. We could have done it.
But we said, Russ, just rest.
Relax. It's all right.
Just rest. We'll take care of this. You need to just rest and get better. Mm-hmm. And he's got quite an ethic to get after it and get things going, and we appreciate that. But he's resting, and he's going to be fine. We just got to get him back to feeling good.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Arizona and talk to David. You're on the Under the Hood show. David, what can we do for you?
Good morning. I have a 1999 Mazda B3000. Truck has 230,000 miles on it, and I'm experiencing a problem with the idle speed. Now, let me give you a little bit of back history on this. This is a problem that I had before, and I solved it by, after a couple of years of dealing with it and doing a hack to keep it under control. I read on the internet, right? I won't go into that, but it worked, but it wasn't perfect.
Did it involve baling wire?
No, I made my own gasket and cut a smaller hole on the upstream side of the throttle body to lower it.
Gotcha.
And I ran with that for a while, actually a long while, and I read on a forum site, a guy came on, and this has been something that is apparently a problem with the vehicle broadly. And there was a factory service bulletin with a new wiring plug for the mass airflow sensor, which most people said it didn't work, so I didn't do it. This one person said, well, if the alternator's not putting out enough voltage and the computer senses it and runs the idle up. I don't know if that's true, but I checked the voltage and it wasn't up to par. I put a new alternator on it, problem went away. So anecdotally, it worked. Recently, I left the headlights on. Actually, the switch apparently has a problem because it didn't give me the chime, and I didn't see them. I came out in the morning, battery was dead. Threw the charger on the battery, did not disconnect the leads, which I hopefully, I know better than to do that, but that's what I did. I charged it up, started it. Now I have a high idle again. I disconnected the battery, let it set, put that back on, no change. Put on a new idle air control that I had from before, and it actually made the problem slightly worse. Then I put a real old one that came on the replacement engine that I had put in there, and it got a little bit better, but still not right. And one thing that it does that might be diagnostic, you put it in gear, put the brake on, and let the clutch out a little bit and draw the RPM down, it'll stay down at the proper idle point. But as soon as you hit the throttle, it goes back up and stays there.
Well, you got a lot going on there. This was more like a fable than a question. And knowing that you put in a non-factory restrictor plate at one time, that's what it kind of sounded like what you did, like they do in NASCAR on the big super speedways to cut down the airflow. It was what your hack might have been. But you've removed that since then, you said?
Oh yeah, it's just got the standard gasket.
Now, I just got to get myself acclimated here to make sure I'm on the right page with you. 99 Mazda B3000, that's like a Ranger pickup because they were sister vehicles.
Correct.
And the 3000, is that a 3.0 liter motor in there?
Yeah, that's the Vulcan 3-liter.
Sure. And that motor it seemed to do better in the Tauruses than it did in the Rangers as far as longevity.
Yeah,
but you got 200,000 miles on there. You're clicking right along, and it kind of begs the question, like, 200,000 miles and idle's a little weird. So what?
Right.
Well, the engine only has 150,000 miles on it because there is an issue with the cam position synchronizer that I didn't know, and it destroyed the original engine.
So
because that synchronizer also drives the oil pump.
Exactly. Another thing that I kind of gathered out of your call is you are a person that does a lot of research on the internet because you seem to have said like 4 different times they have a problem with. It was a very historical context to your comment. Mm-hmm. And so you've done the research to know that it's almost like you have researched the things that could fail and talked them into existence.
Yeah.
So quit looking at the internet.
Yeah, stop
looking at the internet, and everything will work good. Well, I don't know that particular vehicle system, but on most vehicles, and you, I'm sure know this already, but when you had that battery go dead again, there are times that it will lose the learn of the throttle that it's supposed to be set at. There's a self-learn process. Have you considered that as something that you just got to give it a little bit of time here to kind of learn that? Because a lot of these vehicles have a self-learn for throttle, some of the shift points after they've been, in a sense, dead, and if the computer loses its memories that it had, that is something that can happen. Now, I'm saying that as a generality. I'm guessing you've went way past that already and considered that.
Well,
and then the other thing that just to throw out there for a lot of people listening for this type of a call, and I'm going to finish up with talking about the basics on the engine a little bit, but our partner at Clarios would be the first ones to tell you, and of course they sell batteries, and they don't sell batteries, they construct and engineer the components of the AGM batteries, and not that it has to be an AGM, but a good battery with solid storage capacity, the correct cold cranking amps, doesn't have any shorting going on inside of it with a test, is there not only to charge and make things work, but it's also there to be your filter for the rest of the components in the system. And so you were concerned about hooking up that battery charger, and that's a legitimate concern for a lot of people, but if you do have typically a solid battery, and the battery's not completely dead, and so you're not completely shocking the system, you're typically safe, but you do have to be very careful on these newer vehicles, and it is recommended more or less that you do disconnect and get things charged back up again. I know Chris was working with a car that didn't want to go this weekend, and so, but I know that a good majority of the people, they hook up and go, and they typically don't have problems, but you could. So the engine itself is what I want to go back to. You say it's got 50,000 miles on it. I'm trying to keep track of all these things you've said on the comment. 150. So it's okay. So all right. So at 50,000 miles, there was a new motor put in it?
No, the truck had 150,000 miles on it with the original engine when it went bad, and I put an engine in that had 70,000 miles, and since then I've put another 80.
There we go. That helps me. I was assuming remanufactured a new engine, so that makes sense. That makes total sense. So, and you believe that engine is in a good state of health as far as all the cylinders on a leak down test, and it's not running wonky on the vacuum because of a cylinder that's low or a valve problem, something like that, because that could also affect idle. And you'd blow past it once you get RPMs up, but that's something you should consider if you keep fighting with this and can't seem to get it under control.
And that's the part that I don't understand, because it was good right up until this dead battery and recharge.
Yeah, I think that you might just consider letting that thing how many miles have you put on it since then?
Since the charge?
Since the dead battery, yeah.
since the dead battery, I don't know, um, 30 miles maybe.
Yeah, it's possible that you haven't did enough drive cycles to get the learning pattern set down, assuming that system has one. I know Russ has talked about that a lot with people, just some of the learning. So maybe do some internet research. I told you not to do anymore, but maybe just do some in regards to the throttle learn on that vehicle and what it consists of. So thanks for being a hoodie down there in Arizona. We appreciate it, and keep that Mazda running. I love when people call in with these cars of that age that they're keeping running and wonder why they don't work. But it can be figured out if everything's healthy.
David, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Now, let's talk to Milt. Milt, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Well, I've got a 2008 Nissan Titan, and I'm having problems in the cold weather with just cranking over, sounding like it's out of gas, but it's full of gas. And I've had a number of different areas of input that said, it's a new battery. So I put in a brand new battery, said maybe it's just not quite enough voltage to get it over the top. And so I put in a new battery, and everybody said that was it because it worked for a while. 2 days ago, it was about 0 degrees here, and I drove it to work and let it sit outside for about 8 hours, and I went to start it, and it cranked over for probably a good 8 seconds before it finally started. I thought, well, that was peculiar. Yesterday, I drove it to work, and it sat outside for most of the day again, and it spun over and over and over and would not start. I called my mechanic, and he said that he had thought he found the cure for that it was a IPDM, I believe it's called. And
I'm not saying anything because I'm not sure on an IPDM right off the top of my head, so I've got to think about that for a second. So keep rolling.
Okay. So it basically was my mechanic's dad that has another 2008 Nissan Titan himself, and they had the exact same problems. He got a IPDM, put it in, and he had no problems at all. So I called him yesterday to say, hey, can you send me that part number or whatever? And he said, well, we might want to hold off on that. Yesterday morning out in Hot Springs, he said it was 3 degrees and his Titan wouldn't start as well. But as soon as you put a jump pack or jumper cables on it, it fires right up. And the same happened with me yesterday. I got a jump start and it fired right up. If I drive it for a couple hours, or if I drive it and then let it sit for just a short time, it'll fire back up. But evidently sitting outside or in my garage, it'll fire up every time. But with the colder weather, it spins and spins and spins, but won't start unless I put a jump start on it.
How many miles are on this Titan?
Mine has 211, I believe, and the other, my brother-in-law's has about 170, I believe.
And has that everything pretty original as far as the life that you've had this vehicle? Has there been repairs done of any major consequences, or what has been done to the vehicle?
Nothing major that on either one of them, I don't believe.
Well, and from our history with these, that we see, they're a pretty solid vehicle overall. So that doesn't surprise me that you haven't had any major problems with it. We'll occasionally see some problems with mechanical stuff, but many times I think we could connect that back to maintenance habits or types of fluids that were used incorrectly or those sort of things over time seem to, it's a high feature engine in that vehicle, and so it needs a high feature oil and a good maintenance. So getting back to your thought on the battery, most of the time on a battery, and here again, we talked about it on a previous call with someone on a battery, if you bring it in, they can do a test on that battery, and they can find out the capacitance, they can find out the cold cranking amps, they can find out the available on-demand voltage. I mean, they've got ways now with the fancy testers that are available to test these batteries to see under conditions too what the state of health is. And it is important on a late model vehicle, and this Titan's late model. It's got a ton of modules on it. It's got a lot of electronic stuff going on. It is important to have a good, steady, solid power supply, just like it is for a home computer or a network rack of computers. If they get voltage spikes, they can cause all kinds of problems. But I still think that when you start talking about a fuel delivery issue like that, it sounds like a fuel delivery issue like that to me. You still got to go back to that system. Whether it's, and we talk about fuel pumps probably way too much, but whether it's a fuel pump that's not engaging, which could be a result of a relay, a sensor, different things that are going on.
That would be affected by the cold.
Exactly. The cold could easily affect those. Another thing that we run into with certain vehicles that don't want to crank and start right away can be carbon buildups in the engines. That's something that people who I've seen spend a lot of money trying to chase down, and then just at certain temperatures, it just doesn't allow the fuel spray on startup to be correct, and it just doesn't want to start right away. But they usually will start. Now, yours, you said, just absolutely didn't start, correct?
Correct.
Now, that's when you need to have a fuel. It'd be great at that point to have a fuel pressure gauge on it, an inline gauge that was left there, so you could see, did I lose fuel pressure? Or it would be nice to see, did I lose injector pulse? If you had a node light where you could see if your injectors were pulsing or not. Those are the types of things you'd want to find out when it's dead, so you could zero in on something. Or someone that was skilled with a scanner that could have a scanner on board, so when it's dead, they could look and see, oh, geez, I'm not getting a crank signal. Or because otherwise, I think you just find yourself guessing and throwing parts at it. And you've already done that
Right.
once with the battery, and I'm guessing this module you're talking about is something to do with the injection control, if I had to guess. I just don't know on the Nissan what that is right off the top of my head. But it's got to be something to do with that, I would guess.
I think they called it like an intermittent power distribution module. But
Okay, well, like I said, I'm just not familiar with their naming convention. That could very well be, but that's, once again, they're looking at the electrical, and I'm going to go back to it. If that battery is solid, and and you've put a new one in especially, the vehicle's cranking over at a good rate of speed. It's not like it's doing a slow crank or a click and then a crank or that sort of a thing. It should have enough power to power the systems that it needs to run, in my opinion. It's going to have to get down quite a bit to not properly run the modules in that system. You're going to have to start dropping down below 12 volts quite a ways. So I'm suspect that it's not electrical. I'm suspect that it's something else going on with either fuel delivery or, just maybe checking how the history is with those engines with age, with carbon buildup inside, if it's affecting that. But once again, that wouldn't typically cause at all a no start. It would cause a hard start on cold weather, not a no start. So I'm not going heavy in that direction. I'm just something to keep in mind.
Sure. And the other Titan, my brother-in-law's 2008. He's thrown more parts at it. I think they did the cam sensor.
Oh boy.
Just I think 4 or 5 different things before and then he bought that IPDM or whatever, and then it seemed like he had it all. It was starting every time after that until yesterday. But yeah, I thought about the first thing that went through my mind was a fuel pump, and I was like, oh, great, I got a full tank of gas, and now I got to, get.
Well, I think what I would do is if you've got, you sound like you like digging into things, but if that's the case, you might invest in a scanner if you don't have one so that you can learn how to use it when it's running, so you can check, all right, this is what things look like when they're normal. This is my normal signal I got here. This is my normal signal I got here when I started up. Figure out what the normal is, have that with you, and then when it doesn't start, check it and see, what don't I have? And one of those things that you may not be able to check easily with the scanner because they don't have sensors on that age of vehicle probably is fuel pressure. But I think you need to check this thing when it fails, see what you're missing, so you don't just buy a bunch of parts. So at least you can put your efforts towards the right system. If it was going to our shop, I know that's what Russ would tell you if he was sitting here. He said, "Hey, if this thing's running good and you bring it in, it's all bets are off."
Yeah.
But if you can let me have it, and we know it's got a forecast ahead that's going to be cold, like for 3 days, we got a cold forecast ahead of us, we'll leave it sitting in the parking lot, and we'll go out there first thing in the morning and try to start it and hope that it fails.
Right.
that's our best chance of solving this. Because when it's working good, you're going to have a really hard time solving it.
What a drag to, I bet there's times you go, oh, I'm going to start that tomorrow morning. And then you look at your watch and it's 9:30 and it's already like 4 degrees instead of 10 below. And you're like, oh, shoot, I might have missed my chance.
Yeah, I've done stuff like that before, but I know where we're at right now. The next few days, we've got hoodie weather. It's cold. I mean, you want to have a couple layers on, and so it'd be a good test time here in the last couple of days.
Milt, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. I was noticing this morning, speaking of the temperatures out there in our local market, how big your parking lot was today.
Why did it look bigger? Because it's cold.
Yeah, because I was at one end of it. I had to walk the whole thing, and I was like, huh.
And I do make you park completely on the other side of the parking lot.
I bet, boy, this is the longest this parking lot has seemed since
You
Shannon was going to pave it. I bet
realize
it seemed pretty big
I
then.
told you to park over there because I love you. You know that.
Yeah.
It's for your own.
It's
for your own good.
It's for my health. I appreciate it.
Okay, just checking.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. This is the Under the Hood Show.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel and you join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Hoodies are nice. I'm wearing one today. I'm sporting one of the hoodies. We had good hoodie weather here today, and it's brought to you by the folks at Universal Technical Institute, UTI. And the winner for the hour number 1 on the hoodie, we give one away every hour, is Dale Across. Cedar. I'm guessing that there's maybe another letter supposed to be on there. Maybe not, though. Dale Across.
Okay.
And he's from Cedartown, Georgia. Dale Across, you've won yourself a hoodie, and it's brought to you by the folks at UTI. If you're looking for a career in a lot of different things, they've got campuses all over the country, but it's hands-on learning, and it's skills that are in high demand. They really are. I mean, we're talking automotive, welding, marine, you name it. There's something for you, and the campuses are in some pretty nice locations.
Today is the day you're like.
Today I like looking at that map
Florida.
and like maybe a career change is in my sights.
If you, I heard a commercial today in our home market for an auto place. I won't be super specific, but their techs can make up to $100,000 a year at startup if they have the right certifications and the tools and all that. That's pretty good. You should.
Yeah, and it's like anything else. You've got to learn the skill, and then you got to hone the skill, and the opportunities are there. Mm-hmm. It's like anything else. People say, "Well, I want to be a tech because I can make $100,000." Well, if you don't know how to fix anything, you're not going to make that.
That's true.
You've got to learn it and be proficient in it, and that's when the people start really seeking the rewards. The careers are great all around, but if you're somebody that wants to keep achieving and keep learning, that's what you want to do. And that winner is Dale Cross.
Dale Cross.
From Dale Cross, he is the winner from Georgia.
Okay.
And Russ is live texting the show, even though he's not here. It's kind of like live tweeting.
Yeah.
But he's helping us along, and we appreciate that because Russ is definitely the maestro of the studio, and so we've got a good handle on it, but not the handle he's got on it.
That's true.
It's a different kind of handle.
866-594-4150. We got a question here from YouTube on the chat on YouTube. What's your opinion on Marvel Mystery Oil?
I don't know. It's a mystery. I can't tell you.
Can't tell you. That's the trick. You got to
Dad
try
joke
it.
alert.
Yeah, for sure.
My kids get sick of my dad jokes. They never quit. They really don't. Actually, my kids' friends love them.
You think?
They do.
Yeah, right.
They do. They do. But my kids hear too many of them.
Sure.
So they only get small doses of them.
That's a good point.
So they do think they're great. Mm-hmm. I think.
Yeah, no, they don't. But go ahead.
Marvel Mystery Oil is something that there's a lot of engineered compounds that are out there that people use for different types of additives. Marvel Mystery Oil has been around for a long time. I know we've used it in some pretty aggressive applications over the years. And I know my brother-in-law, Steve, has used it in some pretty aggressive applications over the years to get corroded engines that are stuck. So it's got some really good nature to it to penetrate and to do some of those things. If you mix it up just right, we would mix some Marvel Mystery Oil with some I don't know, diesel fuel and some other lubricants, and we would make a potion that we could use to soak into a cylinder.
Okay.
When it was old and rusted to on-stick a corroded and stuck engine. And I know, especially like for Steve, when he would have his cast iron tractor engines that would be stuff that they would drag out to get running, they could get a lot of them free with that. But the product itself, if you read their container, they have a lot of different things you say you can do with it. I have always been one that has told our listeners that if you are using the correct API service grade of oil,
Okay.
and you're using the correct fuels that your vehicle is supposed to have by what's recommended by the engineers that built it, and you're paying attention to your driving style and your maintenance type, a lot of people are budget conscious, which they should be, but they try to adapt their maintenance. They try to adapt their maintenance budget to the most appealing maintenance schedule they see that matches their budget.
Absolutely.
And that may not be the best schedule for the way that you use your vehicle and drive it. And so what we see over the years, and I got an article here if we get a chance to get to it, talks about how, what's changed in oils over the years and why it's important. But if you don't have the right stuff going on there, it's going to cause problems. So if you do the right things like that, I have always been one that says you shouldn't have to spend the extra money on those extra additives. But there are some really good ones that it won't hurt a thing at all. And there's times it can be a good enhancement to what you're doing. But if you don't want to spend some of that extra money, you don't need to. But if you take a look at some of that good old Marvel Mystery Oil, it's been around for a long time. There's some uses on the back that are very specific that I believe in it for, but I would not be one to dump it into my fuel for just, for the heck of it, because I think I'm going to try to clean up some injectors. I would buy an injector cleaner. That's specifically made for that. If there was something I wanted to do with an engine to do an engine oil system cleaner, I'd use one of our partners like Justice Brothers that has an engine oil system cleaner that's specifically formulated for today's engines and the things that it does. And so, I mean, the people from Marvel would probably jump on and say, no, ours will do the same thing. That's okay. Maybe it will.
Right.
But I am going to take my bets on using something that is formulated for my specific use in those regards. Marvel's been used for a long time for some things that it works very well for.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Joe. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Joe, what can we do for you?
Yeah, so I got a 2005 Chevy pickup. My four-wheel drive don't work. It works on auto four-wheel drive, but not on low or four-wheel drive straight.
Well, does the buttons, is it a push button electronic, you said, right?
It's a push-button electronic, yes.
Are the lights
And
flashing
on
at
auto,
you?
it works.
Are the lights flashing at you or anything? On the button?
Nope. Everything's, I got it in two-wheel drive now, and it's on orange. When I put it in four-wheel drive, it flickers. It flickers and stays on, but it's not in four-wheel drive.
Is that a 2500 or a 1500 truck?
It's a 1500 club cab, quad cab, short box.
Well, that system that's on there, that electronic system, is composed of like four major parts. You've got, of course, the switch that you push. There is an electronic shift control module also. That's a standalone module. There is a force motor or an encoder motor, I think is a term you'll use, some people use, on the front differential, and there's also a motor on the transfer case. And all those items, of course, have to be working right for this thing to function the way it's supposed to. And you will also have people run into problems with the wiring that is connected to those different components, which can drive you a little bit crazy if it's a wiring issue. But I know when the folks at our shop, when they ID these things, they kind of work through it step by step to see, all right, am I getting the signal here? Am I getting the signal there? They'll test that system, and there is a little bit you can see from their scanner to see when they push the button, is it sending the command? And if they push the button, it's sending the command, and it's not going. It could just be that there's a bad motor on the transfer case. So those the common items to fail on those systems are most likely the front differential encoder motor that's up there on the front differential, and the one on the transfer case. Those are the two we see the most failure on, and they are easily replaceable components. But I wouldn't just start throwing one on until you had somebody do a little bit of testing, or else just reading on the internet how you can do it yourself to test those components. to make sure. It could be a very affordable fix. Some of those pieces are available from a partner like ours, like Dorman. They have high-quality replacement OEM fixes for those. Some of the encoder motors on the transfer cases can get quite expensive, and I know there's people that will buy an OEM recycled through looking on like Car Dash Part to replace them if that's what it is. But I wouldn't go buying one until you do just a little bit more testing on that system.
Does that help you out there, Joe?
Uh-huh. Yeah, but that was a question here while you were talking. I had it, but the front motor I've checked out. That works because when I got them out of four-wheel drive, it kicks in, and just on my the little button at the four-wheel drive button, it doesn't kick in. Could there be there's two sensors on top of the two plugs on top of the transfer case? Could they be interchanged? I mean, mix one in. I put a different motor in there. Could they be plugged in the wrong way, or
I don't think they allow you to do that. I don't think I don't think so. And I think that what they are inside that transfer case. It's not an electronic clutch of any sort. It's a clutch in a fluid bath that uses a viscous coupling type situation to do what it does inside in that auto mode. And so all of your electronics are on the outside of that transfer. I don't believe that those sensors are going to affect the operation, if I remember correctly. So I hate to think you have a problem inside your transfer case, but if you are able to shift, from your auto setting to, you said you could go to two-wheel drive or couldn't?
I can't. Auto four-wheel drive works. It works in auto four-wheel drive, but in low it doesn't, and four-wheel drive it doesn't. On auto it works. That's what got me pausing.
Yeah, it does tell you that it does tell you.
Auto.
Yeah, it does. Four-wheel drive modes. It doesn't for sure tell you anything in regards to the front four-wheel drive at that point. But my hunch is that you've got something going on with that. You said you already did put a motor on the transfer case?
No, not the transfer case, the front axle.
Okay, all right. I think I'd be looking towards that transfer case one as if I was going to take a hunch at something. That's what I'd be looking towards.
Joe, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. What's got your attention in the automotive world?
Well, the automotive world just keeps on turning, and we're trying to see, when the momentum comes back to get the production's all back up to speed. Mm-hmm. And for whatever industry you're in, there's still big challenges for the production cycles with the chip shortage. We hear way too much about that, but it's involved in so much of what they make. The manufacturers continue to have struggles with that, and it seems like whatever manufacturer was best positioned to be able to keep building product or keep their product flexible on what they could use and not use has affected that production. And that's why you've seen some changes in, like, Toyota taking over, the production crown for a while here in North America. You've seen some big changes. So we continue to watch that, continue to drive by the dealerships where they don't have the big supplies on hand. I am getting some indications, some of my friends in the industry, that the used car market is showing that it may have peaked.
Okay.
Which was interesting to hear. They're not saying any big changes, but they just noticed just enough that they're starting to see some auction prices come down just a little bit, and it could have just been a trend for a period of time, but that was encouraging to hear, but also a little bit scary.
Right.
Because I think there's a lot of people that have bought into this market, and just whatever you're going to buy right now, you're paying a premium.
Yeah, you hope it's not a bubble that bursts.
So, yeah. I mean, I think you got to continue to be wise with your own budget to know that, okay, I feel pretty solid where I'm at. I've got enough extra for this payment. I think you got to continue to do that, and probably even more so with potential of changing weather in the financial markets.
Right.
So we just continue to watch that, and from our business, we just still continue to see people repairing a lot of vehicles, keeping things running because they can't get the supplies that they need, and we want to make sure that people out there are always considering what their options are. But I just think that we got to pay attention to the market, be wise. And our partner, Autotempest.com, all the cars in one search, good place to search, watch what's happening, and just pay attention to the market. I think that's probably a big part of what I've got going right now.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. 4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Dave. Dave, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hey, guys. I have a family member that purchased a 2016 Audi Q5 with a 2.0 in it, and I do all the maintenance on the vehicles. And I just wanted your opinion. It doesn't have a dipstick. It has an oil extraction tube, and then it has a cover that covers the engine compartment completely underneath. Is it better to take that cover off and get to the drain plug, or is the oil extraction tube and pumping out the used oil the same? I'm just asking which way I should go with this and change an oil, if I should use the extraction tube or if I should take the time and remove that cover and get at the plug underneath.
Well, I believe that, then when they engineered that thing, their goal was to make it a little bit friendly for the techs and the people that had to service these vehicles, and they do surround everything so tight underneath these cavities anymore to make sure that they're protected from the elements, and it looks aesthetically pleasing when somebody looks underneath there from the top to the bottom. And so I believe they've got that set up so you should use that tube and feel good about that, getting all that oil out of there. Plus the highly engineered fluid that car requires is going to be a good long-term fluid, so that if there is a little bit left and you are mixing your new fluid in there, I think that you're going to be reloading that chemical package and the additive package when you put the new oil in, and the bit that's left behind will be just fine. That's my opinion based on talking to some technicians and stuff. There might be some dyed-in-the-wool guys that would say, no, take it all apart, get every bit out of there, but you're still always going to be leaving a little bit behind when you do those sort of services. And there again, I'm sure, what are they recommending for a maintenance schedule on that?
Well, that's a little convoluted too. Now the manual says 10,000 miles, but everything I've read on forums is saying 5,000 to 6,000 miles with a full synthetic. It's a 5W40 that they want in there. So.
Well, I will tell you that the engine that's in that vehicle is probably a $6,000 to $7,000 engine as a recycled engine. So, if you had to buy a new one, it's probably $10,000 to $15,000. So, when I think about that,
you lean towards 5 or 6.
Well, no. I was going to get something out, and I got to be. I'm always careful about what I say because we've got.
You are
a little bit.
Wow. What would happen if you weren't?
It's hard to say. But there is such a battle between the marketing side of selling a car, and the engineer side of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure if you talk to the engineers at Audi, they would definitely say that we can make this engine last a long, long time. Here's what you need to do. And then
you can be assured that marketing and engineering didn't just agree the whole time.
There was a debate.
Yes.
I'll guarantee you there was a debate. And they said, all right, so you want to do it every 7, but can we say 10? How much is it really going to hurt to say 10?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think BMW says 10. And this happened back in probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. There was a push for extended maintenance intervals as manufacturers were kind of competing with customers. And cost of ownership, I don't know who first started bringing it into the market, but there was some marketing campaigns that started bringing cost of ownership into the mix. And part of that is driven by the electric vehicles also, because cost of ownership is looked at with those, and they say, all right, well, you don't have these fluid changes. I do have some extended brake maintenance I have to do that might be a little bit different to take things apart and lubricate them with an electric vehicle. I got tires that are the same on an electric vehicle. But they start making some of those comparisons. I think a lot of the manufacturers feel pressure to stretch out what they state as their maintenance intervals.
Right.
And that maintenance interval will be safe for a good life of the vehicle, maybe a good second life of the vehicle as a premium used car or a lease return that comes back. But it may not be the best for the person that's going to buy that car and try to keep it for the longest haul.
Right. We want to get 1 million miles. They want us to get a couple 100,000.
I think that's fair.
Quarter million.
And I don't want to sound crass when I say that. I just think it's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
There is a obsolescence in most all products that is going to happen, or else it's if you made it the perpetual motion machine. You'd never sell another unit.
Right.
And that doesn't work really well for the powers that be. So I really think a person has to look at your driving style, how you use the vehicle, and make good decisions with the consultation of a technician. I think there is some value to reading some of the forums, but I do remind people that the freaky people live in the forums.
Yeah, for sure. They go there to tell their outlier story
Yeah.
in a lot of instances.
Right, and so that outlier story gets a lot of press.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm getting a new snowmobile that I've been waiting for, and I think it might be held up by the truckers caravan in Canada. This might be why I'm not getting it, but because it's built. But as I've watched a Facebook forum that has to do with this new sled, there are certain people that jump on there and say, "Watch out for this! Watch out for this!"
Right.
And there's the highest majority that got on and say, "Hey, just got my new one, love it, didn't have any problems, everything's great, but did you watch out for this?"
Mm-hmm.
And it is a few outliers that have had some interesting issues, but they're small.
Right.
So I really think you got to find a good mix between that stuff when you look in those areas.
Dave, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's see if we have time here. We'll talk to Ken. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Ken, what can we do for you?
Good morning. I have a 2002 Tahoe. When I bought it, fairly cheap. The motor ran good. Transmission shifts good, but that's the only reason I bought it. But these past two big snowfalls, I've been underneath it, and when you put it into four-wheel drive, I usually cruise around at 4 high when we get that, 8-inch snow. But you put it into drive or reverse, and you hear it clunking coming from the front end. So I'm pretty sure it's those CV axle shafts.
Well,
But my very specific question.
Yes.
My very specific question is, in two-wheel drive, you cannot hear that clunking. 4 high, you can. So in 2 high, are those axle shafts still turning even though they're not engaged?
Yes, they are. They are turning, and so they don't, because they are splined right into the hub of the front wheel, and so that CV shaft is always turning. And the question would be whether it has any tension on it between two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, but they are always spinning. And so that's something that, to answer that question, 100%, they're always spinning.
Yeah, because I've owned a couple older Ford Broncos. I still have my 78, but they have lockouts. But this, in the center of the hub, you can't see a lockout or anything underneath it that would do that.
Yeah, I know. If you look at it, if you take off and just really inspect it, you'll see that it's splined just like a front-wheel drive car into the hub. And so that it's always going to be turning that axle, and the difference is whether or not internally they've engaged the gears with that force motor on the front differential when you hit four-wheel drive, and then also whether or not internally it's locking up the clutches in the transfer case for when you're in four-wheel drive. So inspect the U-joints really well on that. That's not unusual for those to have, especially in the rear, and that can resonate kind of funky, and you'll wonder where it's coming from. So check that. Check your motor mounts. I mean, not unusual for those to have some problems. I said it would be unusual for those to have some problems, but you can always check that. So under reversing and drive, if things are shifting, if you got an age on it and a motor mount that's gotten soft or weathered and it's just kind of clicking on the metal beside it, those are things to look for. Look for exhaust. But if you feel it as a drivetrain noise, I would first be looking at those U-joints, and then it could be that you're starting to get some slack in that transfer case too. So just kind of work your way from the front to the back.
Ken, thanks very much for the call. That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturtevant's. Hour 2 is coming up. 866-594-4150. You can call right now and hang out for the break, and we'll be back on the Under the Hood Show.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood show from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood show. Russ Evans is not here today. Shannon Nordstrom is here to answer your questions.
Welcome, Hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. I was having a conversation. Let me rephrase that.
With yourself?
With myself. So it wasn't really a conversation. I was thinking about the chip shortage, the supply issues, all the things we have going. And I thought, I had a thought and then immediately flipped it. So I thought it's unfortunate that we have some vehicles right now that are very exciting to the public in general, like the new Corvette. Not that new anymore, but the new Corvette, the Bronco. And I thought it's kind of a bummer that the supply issue is hitting even now on that stuff because they've got these vehicles that the public is excited about and they can't get them in the public's hands as quickly as they would like. And then I thought, or is that a positive in the long run? Because I think of like the Bronco itself. Critics love it. People love the new Bronco. You love the new Bronco.
I haven't got to love my own yet.
Right. You have one coming. If you had liked it and gotten it, would you be over it? Right now, you're even more excited now about your Bronco than you were when you got it.
There's plenty of pent-up excitement. And then after going to the Bronco off-rodeo and experiencing just how capable it was, it's like, you're right. Now I'm waiting even more anticipation to have it.
Is that good or bad once you get it? Will you be happier or will you have set yourself up? That's that unanswerable question.
If you knew you were going to get a Christmas present 2 months before Christmas, would you be more excited about it than if you found out about it a week before Christmas?
That is a very good question and actually has come up in my life with the Christmas show we do. That's one of the stories is that I was given a gift the week before Christmas. And because I chose, do you want it now or do you want it in a week? Now. And I was like 6. It absolutely ruined Christmas for me. It made Christmas miserable watching everybody get their presents, and I knew there was nothing under the tree for me.
So there's a lot of people out there right now that are watching everybody get their presents with the vehicle that they've ordered.
Right.
Or maybe I was just talking to an electrician yesterday, and he had some Generac generators sitting there, and we were talking about those generators, and he said, I go, how long have you had those? He said, well, I ordered them 6 or 8 months ago. He said, they're just coming in now, and we're staging for installations. He goes, we have to be planning ahead that far. And so I think that there's part of it that has kept demand high and kept the buzz high in the market. The staying power of that buzz is going to be a little bit longer because there's more people waiting and talking about it.
We still haven't, the whole world hasn't seen the Bronco yet.
Yeah, so you kind of wonder what the exhale is like.
Right.
So your question is fair. I think you got a really fair question, but I would have to say it's probably helped it, but the manufacturer's got to be going crazy because when they come up with something like that and they know they got we're pretty sure we got a hit on our hands here. Not only do they want to get it out, they want to get it out and they want to get as many in the hands of people as they can and then come out with the next model.
Right.
The teaser model.
Yeah,
imagine. And maximize that. I mean, I would think that they would have been much more exciting to put the Raptor out after hundreds of thousands of people had already gotten their
you're right.
their Badlands edition or their Outer Banks edition. When you think of their mindset is like, okay, we've got it here. We've sprinkled the demand. We're starting to tail off a little bit. Now we're going to drop this.
Could you imagine? It must be awful to be on that side of it. Hey, Shannon, I have $100,000. I'd like to give it to you. Nah, I'll take it in 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I really want to give it to you. I don't want it. Let's just don't give me that money. Let's hope in the next 2 years you don't find someone else to give that money to.
And I'm sure the manufacturers never thought they'd have to be out there making rules on how their dealers were going to behave based
Right.
on this situation. So
They want that to happen in addition to just regular.
just the natural progression, not
Yeah.
not a like I have to do this because I don't know how many we're going to get.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Matt. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Matt, what can we do for you? Matt, are you there? Oh, Matt fell off. 866-594-4150. I should say disconnected from the phone.
That's
I
better.
don't know what happened
That's
to him.
better.
Let's talk to Steve. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Steve, what can we do for you?
Morning. I've got a question about my son has an '07 GMC 1500 with a 5.3 in it and a 6-speed automatic. And there's two things I'm wondering about. He seems to be getting a little lifter noise off and on. You know, in the cold weather, it clacks a little more than he thinks it should, and I'm just kind of wondering on that end if there's maybe some kind of additive, oil additive he should be using. He's up in or northwestern North Dakota right now, you know, so there's a lot of cold weather and stuff up there. And also, when he's been servicing it, he's been seeing a little transmission fluid on the front end of the bell housing. Transmission bell housing, so I'm kind of thinking maybe the front pump seal starting to weep on that, and I was just wondering if there's like any miracle additive a person could put in there to maybe kind of prolong the inevitable. I'm sure sooner or later a person will have to take it apart and put a seal in it. But
Well, let's take the engine part first. It would not be unusual for there to be a lifter that's getting a little bit sticky or slightly collapsed on those motors. We see that from time to time. And there's also times you'll occasionally get a valve spring that'll crack or break and can cause some noise there. But we definitely want to identify whether this is a true top-end noise from something like that or if it is more related to a piston that's just a little bit loose on the skirt of the piston that's rocking a little bit when it's cold and making some noise. And then as it warms up, it goes away. And even an exhaust leak to an untrained ear can sound a little bit like some of those noises until it gets warm and seals itself back up again. So we like to throw that out there just for other listeners. But you sound like he's pretty zoned in on it's a top end noise.
well, yeah, he thinks so. Yeah, I mean, he drives it pretty steady, and it's not around here, but I'm guessing it's got about 150,000 miles on it now, and he has to commute, so it gets warmed up pretty good every day, and so, you know, the moisture and stuff's kind of condensation in the motor is not an issue.
Yeah,
so
that's good. Well, if it's an 07 with a 6-speed, that means it's the newest generation. Well, not the newest, but it was the switch right there. They had an 07 Classic and they had an 07 New Style. And if it's got the 6-speed, it's most likely the New Style. And that probably has the displacement on demand type system on there. Is that correct? You may not even realize it has that. But in 07, that was
where it goes from 4 to 8 or
yes,
whatever.
Yeah, yep.
Is that what you're? I can't honestly answer that question. As far as I know, he's never mentioned it.
Yeah, and it just kind of does that automatically if it is that version. But you want to pay attention to those systems if they are starting to make a little bit of noise to make sure you don't have something physically broken or wearing before you spend a bunch of money on it. But to answer your direct question, we will always try a can of, like, once again, one of our partners is Justice Brothers. They have what they call an engine tune-up, and we've had good success with that sometimes, helping to just get enough of that chemical in there to loosen up something that's hanging up a lifter, just some grime and crud from the years, and that would be worth a try. Or an engine oil system cleaner to be used prior to the oil change, just to see if, once again, you can give some really deep cleaning in there. But if that doesn't do it, then you're going to want to pull that valve cover off and do a physical inspection. As far as the front seal, the transmission conditioners have a seal restorer in them that can sometimes work if it's getting a little bit thick and not as pliable as it once was. You can try that. There are some sealers, but we're not big fans. But otherwise, you're exactly right. Sometimes about the only thing you can do on those when they start getting wore around that torque converter and stuff is just drop it down and put the front pump seal in it.
Steve, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Earl in Kansas. Earl, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Yeah, I got a '02 Ford F-150, 4.6 liter, has 197,000 miles on it. And I've got two questions regarding this truck. I just purchased it recently for my son to drive to high school. It's been cold out, and when we start it cold, it'll idle up real high, and then almost fall on his face, idling down, but it doesn't die, comes back up, and then finally levels out. When you take off, for example, you're sitting at a stoplight, the idle's staying up over 1,000, maybe 1,300 RPM for a little bit, and then it finally comes back down. And my research I've done says it could be the idle air control valve. Is there anything else I should be looking at?
Well, one of the first things we'll tell people in these sort of situations, and did you say this? I didn't catch it there. Was it a six-cylinder or a V8?
V8, 4.6 liter.
Okay, 4.6 liter. I heard the 6, and I was just finishing sending somebody an email when I grabbed on there, and shame on me for not paying attention. And the side of that I didn't hear. So if it's an 8-cylinder, okay. But we always tell people to make sure that they go through and always inspect closely. This is the simple stuff, yes, but always inspect that air intake. Make sure that it's all sealed. If this happens to have like a aftermarket air filter on it sometimes, and the factory air filter box is available, we've encouraged people to put the factory box back on just to try it, seal everything up all the way up, clean that air horn out where the throttle valve is at. Make sure you got the power disconnected if you're going to clean up around that throttle valve so you don't get your fingers caught in there, because that's a very powerful little motor in there. It can do some problems if you try to stick your finger in there. But just make sure that all gets really cleaned up good, and make sure you don't have any sort of vacuum leaks. Just double checking, going back around to the lines that go to the brake booster or anything else. Just that's some of the low-hanging fruit you should always check, just to make sure to get that thing back to the way it was buttoned up from the factory and see if that affects it any at all. But after that, then you can have an idle air control motor that'll go bad, but they typically aren't going to go bad and still be conducting that range of change that they're doing. As if that makes any sense. It sounds like it sounds like it's being commanded more so with the type of change that it's making, if that's what it is. But I would check those other things first. Give it a good, thorough cleanup, and just clean all that stuff up. And then I think you're going to find that you might be pleasantly surprised that it's not a big problem. If you haven't done that already,
just could be a vacuum leak somewhere.
Yep.
It's got the factory air box and hoses and everything.
Check and make sure there's not any. Make sure there's not any cracks in that hose setup going back where it hooks up, because that can throw off some funky readings into the sensors. If there's cracks, like where they lift it up to change the filter, and it's pulling some extra air in there, either on the back side or front side of the sensors. That's something you always want to be making sure is intact going forward when you're working with a sensitive idle issue like that. But then you get into more things that you'll have to watch on a scanner and see which one of those components is it being commanded, or is it taking off and having a life of its own?
Right. Yeah, and it does fine after it's warmed up. It mainly does this when it's cold. After it's warmed up, it'll idle down at stoplights and everything. It's just this problem is when it's not fully warmed up yet.
So it's like it's in its open loop yet, and it's using its more basic. So you're just taking off. It's using its more basic sensors and stuff just to kind of have the vehicle running. It's not controlling it quite as well yet at that point. So something to definitely check in. And we always encourage people to look at the scanner, make sure you got the right temperature readings on there, so it isn't a temperature sensor that's giving an erroneous reading. Things like that are the low-hanging fruit you want to check first before you start buying a bunch of parts.
Earl, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. I, again, am amazed that when it's 11 below and the car starts, every year I think, Good job, automakers, because I just can't. I can barely move in it, but my car, even the hybrid, doesn't even go to the gas motor all the time. It starts up just like normal on the battery and just sits there waiting. And then when I hit the gas, it goes. I'm regularly amazed by my car in the winter.
And we should be.
We really should, shouldn't we?
Yeah, amazed that we work in the winter and that the vehicle works well in the winter.
I'm thinking about getting out of that. I think I might be past my due date on that. I never understood that when people were snowbirds or they moved. I'd be like, well, wear a jacket. Now at my age, I'm like, you know what? I'm getting out of here.
Might have a little carbon buildup.
I think so. Let's talk to Gail. You're on the Under the Hood show. Gail, what can we do for you?
I got a 2021 Dodge Ram 2500 diesel pickup, and I was coming home last night, and the DEF pump must be froze up. Is there anything you can do about it except take it to the dealer?
Did it give you the signals and then slow you down for precautions and try to protect itself, or did it stop altogether?
No, I got 50 miles to go, according to the truck, and I live out in the country here, and I can't go too far.
Are you able to get it inside and get the system warmed up for a good period of time?
Yes.
And even after doing that, it's still coming back on that you've got that sensor saying we're protecting
they said
you.
At the dealer, at the dealer they said they had to reprogram it if that was the easiest part, but they probably won't. They'll probably have to put a new pump in, a DEF pump.
We've had some people tell us that just like a washing machine that gets a filter dirty, this is a bad example, but if you got like a front load washer you've ever played with, they've got a filter that you can typically access somewhere from the front, and people forget to change those. Maybe I'll give a little washing machine advice here now too. If you don't know where that's at, find it, because there'll be some amazing things in there that you'll find. Change it. It's going to be some really stinky water that comes out of there, but what it'll do is it'll dry the pump, and you won't get enough fluid circulation through that pump, and then you burn your pump up.
Where do I find that?
On the front load washer?
Oh, front load.
Yeah, a lot of the front loads have got that filter.
Okay, fancy pants.
It's pretty normal now.
Totally.
So they're wondering if because of the cold temperature freeze up that it may have damaged the pump, is what they're concerned about.
Yeah.
I'd be wanting to check that the system that's on there, because these vehicles are made to be in this cold temperature to a certain extent. And now when it gets really cold, yeah, things break, but they've got heaters built into them that are supposed to allow that to get enough viscosity to it that it can start moving, because that stuff does get very thick, the DEF fluid. But I'd be a little bit concerned. Is there still how many miles you got on the truck?
About 4,000.
So everything's under factory warranty, or did they say that this is a user problem? How did they present that to you?
Well, I was the 13th guy yesterday that called in with the problem, and there had been a cold spell here a couple of weeks ago, and two of those guys had problems, and they were back in the shop yesterday.
That is not encouraging.
No.
Because we've had this happen on a couple of vehicles before, and in our cases, we were able to get them into warmth, and everything got back to temperature, and then the next day when we took off with everything warm, it worked just fine at that point. These weren't Dodges. These were other types of vehicles with DEF pumps and DEF systems on them. Diesel exhaust fluid for others that are listening to help with the emissions burning cleaner as it goes out through the system. I think you got to listen to that dealer, because they know if they've got that much experience with this problem, it might be that they're helping Mopar also, or Dodge or Fiat Chrysler America, whoever you want to call it. They're helping them also maybe realize that they've got a problem they've got to solve here in the upper Midwest. If there's that many as you're advertising, I don't know this, but it sure sounds like you got your facts in line. And so maybe there's somebody listening out there that's experienced this with that particular brand that could help out here, but you're probably at their I hate to say mercy, but that's at the direction you're going to have to go.
That help you out there, Gail?
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a shame, because he probably paid $70,000, $60,000, $80,000, depending on $100,000, depending on which model truck this is, with that diesel in it, and then to have this sort of thing happen, it's frustrating because those types of vehicles, usually the problem was getting them started.
Mm-hmm.
And now with the high pressure injection systems and the way that's set up, they typically don't have as much problem starting the diesels, but now the problem is these extra things that have had to been added for emissions reasons with the diesel exhaust fluid and such, it just brings in a whole nother level of complexity to the system in cold weather.
Well, and we were just talking about cars working in cold weather. We didn't even touch on diesels, which is a whole diesels now versus 40 years ago are a completely different animal.
Yeah, and I was talking to our friend Bruce over at Volun Oil, and they're really, they've gotten to be really good, specialists on the oils and lubricants and fuels. And at the beginning of the season, we still had enough fuel in one tank. We were going to try to make it work until it got really cold out, and hadn't got quite our tank filled up and stuff. So we ended up with a situation where he told me, he goes, you know what you got in your tank right now with what's in there for the blend of fuel that it is, and the additive that I put in there, he said, you're good for about 15 below. And he knew about where the problem was at, where he'd start getting some gelling or waxing of the fuel in this case. So I know he's got a better fuel that he stocks that gets ready for that cold season. But after we hit that ridge, we had one truck that had went north, and it was right on the edge. It was 17 below, 13 below, and we were having some problems with that truck running quite right. It ended up being we had some other things going on with it, but you really got to pay attention to that with a diesel more so than ever, especially for people that buy a diesel that aren't familiar with one.
Right, absolutely. You have to know what.
Understand,
Yeah.
Fuel changes and things like that. Very important.
I just picture the engineer getting the call from his boss going, hey, we got a problem with your truck that you designed. Well, it's 20 below. Leave me alone. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. If you follow us on Facebook and you join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
These hoodies are given away every hour of the show. And this week's winner is going to, I got to go back in my string here just a little bit, and we'll keep the suspense up just slightly.
Can't wait.
Larry Kane from Marquette, Michigan. Larry Kane, you are the winner of a hoodie, and this comes to you from UTI, Universal Technical Institute. If you're looking for a career and you want to be able to get right at it and go learn hands-on training in some great places, great locations, we talk about it often, Universal Technical Institute. We've gotten to know these folks over the years, and they have got a great program. And get yourself into a rewarding career that's automotive, marine, welding. I mean, there's so many different things when you look up their website that you can get into.
NASCAR tech.
Yeah. I tell you what, I know there's going to be some shakeout in that whole deal with the new car they're running this year. Because one of their goals was to try to bring costs down, and they hoped that didn't eliminate people. But there's probably a need for people that look at things a little different. Maybe they're training for the new car.
And maybe they're bringing in new
so it might
people
give you an inside track.
Yeah, that's good thinking. If you're a parent and you got a kid that's going, well, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah. Make a choice. Like I told my kids when they were growing up, I said, it's important that you make a choice to do something. Let's make a choice and try something. It may not be exactly what you like. Let's not be in this deliberation mode for too long, but let's give something a shot. And maybe you'll get into it and find out, I don't know that that's for me. You got time.
Yep.
But make a critical choice, choose to do something, and then decide from there what your options are like. Because before you know it, then all of a sudden you'll be much older, not doing what you wanted to do, and you can't get that time back.
I was reading
so make
an
that
article,
critical choice.
UTI.edu. I was reading I'm going to make Ron wait a little more. He's been
so patient.
An hour and a half. I read an article the other day about a mom who told her kids, I want you to learn a skill that can make you money no matter what. Whatever that skill is, you got to learn that skill. And once you do that, you can do whatever you want. You can chase all your dreams as long as you have something to fall back on. And it was a story about this guy who became a licensed barber in his teens, and then he quit high school because he didn't want to do high school. And then he was a barber, and then he became a master barber, and then he went back to school, and now he's like a astrophysicist or something because he had the freedom to do what he wanted because he listened to his mom. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, you never know where it's going to take you. I mean, the other night I was going through some periodicals that are on my desk. I had a big old stack, and I needed to get through them just before I just threw them. I wanted to browse through them.
Yeah, you wanted.
And there was a story in there, I think it was one of our local Empire magazine or something like that. It was about Mark Fonder, and he's a person we know, and it just talked about his story. He owns restaurants in the area, but he originally started off as an electrician, and he was going up to be a journeyman, and he got his leg injured in a snowmobile accident, which kind of makes me think about, just leaving to go snowmobiling after the show today. But that accident kind of caused him to look at things different. He took on a part-time job of bartending because he just only certain things that he could do, and he couldn't do what his career was right at the time. And he ended up being interested in the restaurant business and the bar business, and ended up getting into that. And I think it's been all right for him.
866-594-4150. Finally, let's talk to Ron. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Ron, what can we do for you?
Yeah, thank you. I got a 02 Chevy S10 with a 2.2 and automatic two-wheel drive. I bought it 2 years ago. It's got 165,000. I was wondering, would it be recommended to change the transmission filter?
Well, that's always a good question that people will come up with this on older vehicles.
The filter
specifically,
okay.
yes. You didn't say about the fluid, right?
Great. Fluid looks halfway decent in it.
Yeah, you know what? If that vehicle is still operating good and the fluid doesn't look burned, smell burnt, doesn't seem like it's, looking at it that there's a lot of friction material that's into the fluid, I would have no problem dropping the filter and freshening up the fluid on that. But if you did have it and you looked at it, it's like, I can tell there's just a little bit of slip smell to it, and it's kind of dark. I'm just going to leave that alone. And it's hard to get.
Well,
you can't really pull that pan. You really can't pull that pan off without taking a lot of that fluid out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would definitely look at your fluid. And if it looks all right, I would not be intimidated to change that fluid and filter at that point. Go ahead. What were you going to say? I talked over you.
When I pull the dipstick out, I can kind of read the markings on the dipstick through the fluid. So
yeah, no,
it doesn't really burn or that.
I think that's probably going to be some good maintenance on that vehicle. It sounds like somebody took care of it, and if it runs good, works good, shifts good, fluid's got like I said, a good color to it. It doesn't have to be ruby red, but it's got a good color to it that's not black and it's not dark and doesn't like I said smell burnt. Because clutch pack slipping in transmission fluid makes a very distinct smell that's different than just transmission fluid that's aged a little bit. If you've been around it, you can tell. And so we say it like you should just know this, but it's a burnt smell. It's just kind of a different burnt smell. If you're not sure, go out and take one of your containers maybe you have in the garage or somebody else does that's good transmission fluid.
Yeah, well,
and then give it the chemistry test. Don't just stick your nose right over it.
Okay, I see what
you do the proper whiff.
Smell good fluid.
Yeah, and then smell yours and just see if you notice a distinct difference.
That's a good that's a great advice. I don't mean to sound.
I say it like just do it, but like Russ and like our friends out at Aggie's, we talk to all the time, and other transmission shops that we talk to in our area all the time. They just know this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
People listen to this show, they don't know that. So sometimes you got to have a sample to compare it to be able to figure it all out.
Does that help you out there, Ron?
Yeah, it sure does. Then I'll have it changed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much
for the call. That's go buy a bottle if you don't know. I mean, smell the good stuff, and then you guys have talked about that a ton on transmission fluid. You can tell if it's bad, and I've never really believed that. Like, I don't think I could tell, but yeah, go smell good stuff, and then you'll know.
And we make a bigger deal out of this probably than we should, because that percentage of ones that are pretty bad that you would not change it in, that's a pretty small percentage.
Yeah.
The majority of people are going to want to do the maintenance. They're going to want to get that filter changed and prolong the life of that good transmission.
And I think, too, we get a ton of calls about this. The car's got 200,000 miles. I got it with 150. I don't know. My brother told me never to change at 200,000 miles. But the interval on that is long enough that if you buy a car at X amount of miles and you drive it to 200,000 miles, it might have been within the interval. It might have been completely perfect.
That vehicle might only needed, 3 suggested maintenance transmission services, and maybe one of them was done at 60,000 miles and just nobody knows it.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah, you could have bought a car that's right in the wheelhouse, and it just seems like it's.
That is one advantage that I like to see now with the. Sometimes I don't like when all the data companies are connected together. It doesn't always seem like it's a good thing all the time sometimes because they get information that I don't think they should always have and such. But I think that it's definitely good for consumers, and it's definitely good for people that regularly maintain their vehicles when all these shop records start electronically flowing out to systems like Carfax, so that you can easily see a maintenance history on a vehicle that you may not have access to who did the maintenance. You may not have access to where it was done at because the vehicle came from a state away, and or the shop that you talked to is said, you know what, sorry, I don't have time to look this up. We may have serviced that vehicle, but
right.
You want to bring it in, and if we're going to do some work to it while it's here, I'll give you the printouts. I mean, you got to respect people's time and space too in this day and age of what they can do.
And it must be good enough because it must be a good thing because shops and dealers tout it. I mean, if it were just, no offense to you and other business owners, but if it were just a benefit for me, I don't think as many people would buy into it. I mean, I have like shops and dealers. They say, "Here, we offer this service. It's not just to make me feel better. If it didn't work for them, they would probably not do it." Does that make sense?
It does. It does. But I just really think that for the people out there that are this is a good opportunity just to say this. If you're somebody that does your own maintenance on your vehicle, that packet of receipts or that little journal that you kept, maybe we'll get vehicles, and on the back inside pages of the owner's manual, they've written down oil change.
I had that on one of
4,200 miles, Quaker State, blah, blah, blah. And they've journaled everything that's been done to that car. Or there
used to be a spot for that in your manual.
Yeah, or there's a file jacket that gets handed to you with the car, or when you're looking at the car to say, hey, here's everything I've ever done to this vehicle. Boy, that gives you confidence. But the modern day equivalent of that is running like a Carfax report and seeing, all right, I've got a regular maintenance history from the time this thing was new at XYZ repair facility. And so much of that now is hardwired. If you want to use the shop, how would I say it? If you want to use the shop management system that works well, that's been established and used in the industry, and you want to sign that contract to use their system, kind of got to sign the contract to let them transfer that data. I don't believe there's an opt-out.
And we should point out that those history reports can only tell you what has been done if it's in the system.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that if it doesn't exist or it's not there that it wasn't done. It's a level of security that these 5 things were done.
Right. So just when you look at those reports, just like a title history, whether there's a salvage history or whatever, just remember, it's not 100% accurate on every vehicle.
If there's one oil change on it, it doesn't mean it wasn't changed other times.
Yep.
That's just the one that was recorded.
That's the one that was counted.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. What's got your attention in the automotive world, either in periodicals or life?
Something I wasn't really happy about.
Yeah?
A little bit of a humble brag. This morning I was doing my exercise routine, and so I...
Is that the extent of the humble brag, or is there more?
My wife has a Pilates machine, and I use it not probably how it's supposed to be used exactly.
A Pilates machine?
Well, it's a mechanism.
Okay.
It has a human has to do everything. You're either holding yourself.
Is it one of those things?
Stretching yourselves. No. Okay. it lays horizontal, and there's a like a rowing deck almost that slides on it.
Yeah.
You can push with your feet. You can set different tensions with springs. You can pull with your arms or put it around your legs and pull legs and do different things. So for me, I use it. It's part of what it's for is stretching.
Max, you put it at the max setting, and
I do not.
Okay.
But while I'm laying there,
I said yes.
my head, because we have this set up in our garage, my head is looking right at the front bumper of my pickup.
Oh.
And I've been seeing this for a while, and I want to ignore it.
Yeah, I know this.
But I can't now because I see it not every day.
Worst thing I ever
This
got
isn't
was,
every day, Chris.
Worst thing I ever got was touch-up paint.
Yeah. So I've got some pretty solid rock chips in my bumper, front edge of my hood in a couple places. And I remember when I bought the truck, I didn't get the protectant film on the front that was available.
Uh-huh.
I've got another vehicle that we did put it on. And so I did actually, out of curiosity this morning, go look at that other vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, this looks so good. I wish I would have done that.
Yeah.
And so I know there's companies like 3M that make different protectants for the front of the vehicles, and you see more and more of that where they put a pre-designed. For some, it's pre-designed. Other people, will cut different things to fit, but it is a clear protectant that goes on to the vehicle. There's some companies that have spray-on protectants that are actually applied almost like an overcoat, clear overcoat protection, and there's other ones that are adhesives that adhere to the vehicle that give it that protection.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done that on a few vehicles and been very, very satisfied. And I really was kind of kicking myself after looking at my pickup this morning because I've kept it really nice. I mean, my wife's applauded me on how nice I've kept this pickup because she's the one in the family that will keep a vehicle nicer than I will.
Right. Yeah.
Just in general. And so when I looked at this, I was like, I give her a hard time when she would get a rock chip or anything like that.
Is that why she wants to use the whole speedometer to make sure it travels the full?
You got to give it a good run. Yeah, you sure do. But I've given her a static before about rock chips, and I don't think I have any room to talk.
Oh, yeah.
I think I got to bring it back.
And put the...
I got to bring it back and just tell her I'm sorry for my previous comments about rock chips when I looked at mine this morning. But I'm at a point where I'm going to, if I want to make it nice, there's more there than I think touch-up paint is going to allow.
Right.
So I probably got to bring it to an auto body shop and have them refinish it, and then I'll probably
put the
coating back on there
Yeah.
after that.
That's my car. The car we have, the main car, the one I'm driving today, that one just had it on there when we got it. It just, and it's you can barely see it around the edge of the hood.
Yep.
It's right there, and it covers the whole hood. And
So anyway, something that popped into my head this morning because I do that first, and I'm usually tired at that point because I do it early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I stretch longer than I should because I just
lay in there.
I just don't want to get off and go to the next step because the next step's a little harder work. So then just laying there and stretching.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Kurt. You're on the Under the Hood show. Kurt, what can we do for you?
Got a 2006 Buick Enclave, about 140,000 miles on it. When I started, doesn't matter if it's warm, cold, or anything. It'll start, and it's like it don't catch that little high idle for a second and then come back down. It just dies.
And
if I'm sitting in the car and I touch the foot feet, it'll rev up to about 1,000, come down, idle perfect.
Do you have any sort of check engine or different lights that have come on to enlight your life? That's
I've
good.
even got a code reader, a cheaper one I put on there. I have no codes whatsoever.
All right. Well, this gets into some, I'm hoping it's just a general tune-up issue that you've got going on. And I know we've had a call earlier that we talked about how important it was just to have your air intake system tight, sealed, make sure there's no cracks in the lead hoses, clean up that air horn with like the Berryman B12 chem tool, something like that you can use to clean that area up. That's always a step one. Be careful around that throttle valve. We always tell people because that'll bite you if you don't have the power disconnected or the plug-in disconnected when you try to open that up and clean around there, just to make sure that everything's able to open and close and the air can flow unimpeded and that you can have no disrupting airflows coming from anywhere else into that system.
So by air horn, you mean a physical?
Yeah, the tube that comes from the air cleaner area. Yeah, thank you. To make sure that's all intact.
From the air cleaner over to the intake.
Yeah, and we always encourage people to check that first. It's especially when you don't have any check engine lights or anything like that. You start looking at some of that base stuff that's going on, and you check that out. But start there. I really would like to have you start there. Now, with 140,000 miles, when is the last time that you had spark plugs or anything like that you did to the vehicle?
I bought it with 130,000.
Okay, so you don't really know any maintenance history on it?
No clue.
All right.
No, and I haven't pulled the plug to take a look at them. That's kind of what I was looking at. Is I'm wondering if them plugs, if the gap's getting too wide on them.
Well, that with the fuel injection and the direct injection that has as an 06, you're not going to have. It should still run pretty good, but it's just something I want to bring up to people. But if you just got that vehicle, making sure that you got good fuel filter, and going in there and cleaning all that stuff up just to make sure that it's in a good state of health, just cleanliness-wise, and then start working your way into things that need to be done. Because if you don't have a history on it, you want to get those spark plugs out just to make sure that they can come out. We always talk about that in our part of the country, if nothing else. They're not cheap, so people don't change them right away anymore. They get pretty expensive. But you definitely want to do that and make sure your state of health. But don't ever ignore on one of those engines, there's possibilities of some problems with if the fuels that it's been used have been inconsistent, you can get some buildups in that fuel injection system. And with that high-pressure fuel injection system, a good fuel injection cleaning might be a step that you do. That we're talking about a pharmaceutical-type cleaning where they hook to the rails and they clean everything up really good just to make sure everything's spraying smooth and working correctly, because that low idle is where that stuff shows itself. And you can overrun a lot of that with RPMs, but at low idle is where that stuff shows itself.
Kurt, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Do we gap spark plugs anymore?
You got to make sure they're gapped too. But I mean, it's not like with this stuff here, if you're off by just a little bit, it's still going to be fine.
Right.
But a trained technician is always looking at the gap on the plug to make sure where it's supposed to be, 100%.
But it's not like, I remember when the first time I ever changed oil, I was a kid, and my brother, they
way
used
different than it used to be points and
check
condenser
them all the time.
Way different than that. Big time.
866-594-4150. I was reading an article that we were talking about a little earlier. The trucks, and I've said this for a long time, this isn't me being smart, but the trucks are getting so big again.
I can't remember what they said the weight was on the new electric Hummer. It's crazy how heavy that is.
That one's crazy.
Off the charts heavy.
And I read the article. I even wrote it down here. The average weight of pickups, so all pickups average for their weight between now and 1990, they are 1,256 pounds heavier today than they were in 1990.
That's surprising. It's that much more. I suppose when you add on all the safety systems that have had to be added to the vehicles.
I wonder if they picked that date because that's when it tipped over, when it started to get heavier and heavier. But I wondered about that. Where's the tipping point on that? But I talked about it recently, coming out and seeing a brand new Yukon that was as tall at the hood as I am. Not that I'm a huge person, but it was like, there's a lot of metal on the front. They look more like trains than pickups did in 1990.
Well, a lot of that is aesthetical. I mean, the way they build up that high ridgeline on the vehicle, a lot of that is aesthetical. But when it gets right down to it, they're using some lighter weight steels for safety, but they're having to add more structure to it. Mm-hmm. They've got some really space age steels that are high strength, low alloy steels that they're able to use. But in a lot of places, they're having to add more layers for safety.
Yeah, and when you get into batteries, all bets are off.
Yeah, because there's a lot of weight involved there for sure. Mm-hmm. Tons of weight involved there for sure. So it's interesting. I mean, historically, things weigh a certain amount.
Right.
And 1,200 pounds is a big increase. And so then you're still trying to win a fuel economy, corporate average fuel economy with that increasing weight. What a challenge for the engineers.
Well, there you go. That is another hour of the Under the Hood Show, brought to you by Sturdivants. Thanks very much for listening to the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Earl in Kansas again. I'm going to give you both points there, Doug. We're on the after show, everyone.
Yeah, we can be a little more casual
watching the stream. Let's talk to Earl in Kansas. Earl, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Thank you. Yeah, I called earlier. I have the O2 F-150. I had a second question regarding that truck.
Yeah, no problem.
The previous owners, I don't think they ever touched the cooling system when I got this truck. Heater wasn't working. I flushed the coolant. I flushed the heater core, took the hoses off from the engine side, flushed it through with a water hose and everything. I've put a new water pump on it, thermostat, and I believe I've flushed it 2 or 3 times now. I'm not getting very good heat out of the heater. Now, I feel like there's air in the heater core, trapped in the heater core. When I rev the engine up, it gets hotter. But then once it goes back to running normal, the heat's not very good. It gets warm, but it's not hot.
I know at the shop when they do the fluid changes, Russ and the team, they've got a machine that they hook to it that can help them get the transfer done without interjecting the air into the system. But they still have times that they have to bleed those systems with the cap off, or they have to pull a line and just let it sit, at the highest point to be able to let that air bleed out of there. I'd still be a little bit more concerned if there wasn't a regular maintenance done on that truck, that even though you're able to successfully back flush that heater core, it doesn't have to be plugged to not work very well. If that heater core is, let's say, 8x10 or in size, and it's 1.5 inches thick or 2-inch thick heater core, and 3/4 or half of it is clogged because of just crud that's stuck in there in those passages, you can flow all kinds of water through it, but you just can't dissipate enough heat across the face of the core to get you good heating. I'd be concerned about that. If you say that with RPMs because with RPMs you can race a little more fluid through there, and you're going to be able to pass more of that hot fluid in and out, and you'll be able to get more heat to just go across that area that the fan's going to blow through. But it just can't stay there consistently if that heater core. That's what I would be concerned about, more so than air in the system.
That's what I was worried about. Partial pluggage on that heater core. It's not fully cleaned out.
Because if you get an air bubble in a heat system, a lot of times that'll give you some weird stuff going down the road, where all of a sudden your temperature will jump up and down. And you're like, oh gosh, what's that? And you're wondering if you got a hydrocarbon interjection from a head gasket or something too. And a lot of times that's what that is. It can be an air bubble if you've just serviced the system. But other times, if you haven't just serviced the system, then that's where it gets into, you got to do a hydrocarbon test or something to make sure you don't have a leak somewhere that's injecting engine compression into that coolant flow and disrupting it, causing it to get kind of wonky. And so I don't think that's what it is. My guess is that you might want to try another flush of that heater core. And I know Russ has talked about on the air that they've got a tool that they've got from one of the manufacturers. I can't remember whose tool it is, but it actually uses like almost an ultrasonic type thing to be able to vibrate and help pulse some stuff to break loose things in that core.
Sounds like a bit. It sounds like it.
They said they've had some success with it, but when they're bad enough, the only option is to replace them.
Does that help you out there, Earl?
Right. Okay. Yes, sir. That does. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the call. Justin put a question on Facebook that we can't answer right now. It's an involved, fun discussion, but I can't get the question out of my head, and I don't have an answer for him.
So what are we going to do? You're just going to leave the question out there?
It's bugging me. Here's his question. What is
Maybe I can answer it quick.
Russ, Shannon, and Chris's money is no object dream car?
Oh, we've been asked this before.
I know, and I don't have an answer on that. I'm thinking, and it's been distracting. He also said, did you get your Bronco yet? No,
I haven't.
And he'd love to know more about the performance division we used to have.
It's a lot of questions.
That's a lot. But that dream car, just think about that one. Money's no object. And I remember I posed that to you guys, and you can't think about the value at all. You can't sell it. So you could have don't let that be part of the thing. Well, I'd get that because it's worth $40 million. You don't ever get to sell it in this scenario. You
There's
just
so
get
many
your dream
super
car.
cool cars out there that you see them and you're like, oh, I love that. You just fall in love with the look of it. And there's other cars you look at and say, oh, I'd just love to drive that maybe once or twice to see what the performance is like. But it may not be my dream car to own.
Right.
I guess the one that always seems to come back to me that I for whatever reason just think would be neat, and I'm sure once I got it, it would be like, yeah, maybe that wasn't as cool as I thought it was. But I'd love to have the newest generation of Camaro ZL1 converted into the Trans Am body kit that they do and to make a Trans Am lookalike car out of the newest generation of a new Camaro ZL1, and then make it look like a Trans Am because there's plenty of people out there that have bought those fabrication kits and done that. So you could have an ultra modern Trans Am, and I think that would be right up there on my list. But it's probably not the one I should have on my list because I'm sure after I had it, I'm like, that was fun. That was fun. But
a lot of
when you watch like
speaking of wood rock chips,
but when you see like Barrett Jackson was recently on, and I ended up watching a fair amount of that. I don't always get a chance to, but this year I did watch a fair amount of it.
I sent you the picture of the ad in Road and Track that says, "Hey, call us. We'll sell the vehicles are valued more. You should."
The prices on that stuff was it was next level this year.
Same as used car. I mean, the values of those have gone up like regular cars.
You saw, what used to be $100,000 cars going across was $200,000 cars going across and $300,000 cars going across. But when you watch the different vehicles get paraded across that stage, it'd be really hard to pick just one.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's hard. I mean, so I think I gave the right answer for the one I'd pick first. Because if money's no object, then maybe I can get another one. But
okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I think that's the one I'd pick first because I could drive it, I could enjoy it, I'd love the look of it.
Wait a second, though. That's a terrible answer, and here's why I say that. No, here's why I say that because those exist, and you could get one. Money's no object. You isn't there a $5 million car you want to own that, like an old Shelby or a? I mean, you just get to own it and have it. So I guess
I've got a car right now that I don't drive and I can't enjoy and I just love looking at. I'd want something that I knew I could feel good about driving and taking it out and have fun with it. I could track it a little bit. If I
might have been too hard on you right there because as someone who you and I have had this discussion often, I have a car that I drive in situations that I probably shouldn't because I want to drive that car. Mm-hmm. So I drive it places that your dad goes absolutely nuts about because I drive it on gravel. And that I saw him physically react when I said I drove my Solstice on gravel.
Yep.
But yeah, I think if I had a priceless Shelby, would I drive? Yeah, I don't know. That's an impossible question.
Well, we got a friend of ours in the industry that he did really well in the auto recycling industry, and he was involved in some buy sells, and then he's been really, really wise with his money on real estate, and he's done extremely well. Very proud of him. But we just recently at our convention, we're down, and he did an open house at one of the areas where he stores his cars, and the cars he has are just through the roof. I mean, they're just through the roof of what he's got. I just can't describe what he has for a collection. And then I looked at it and I'm like, this is all really cool, but he does drive a ton of them. I mean, I think he tries to drive as many as he can, but you just start looking at like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I do get to a point where I want less things to worry about and more things to enjoy. And so that's probably what leads that question, because you see some of those like crazy McLarens go across the stage and some of the Bentley stuff that's just awesome looking. Bugattis, that are just amazing. But I just don't know if the practicality. I don't. You didn't say practical in the question. I know.
The question that we talked about once that I really liked was if there were a car that you could put in your garage that you couldn't drive and couldn't do anything with, you just got to look at it every day, and it didn't cost you anything. They're going to put it in a garage. Blah blah blah. What car would you pick that you just would look at, and you can polish it, you can wash it, you can do that, but you can't drive it. And every time I hear a question like this is not the car I would pick for either of those, I don't think. But when I was a very little kid, 8 years old, my mom had a friend who had a perfect light blue Stutz Bearcat, it was, I don't know, the 20s. It was the most amazing thing I had ever seen up to that point. Of course, I was 10, so it wasn't that amazing. I didn't have a great field of knowledge to test it against, but still, that car pops into my head quite a bit because it had the chrome. It was an amazing looking vehicle, and that
list would be long too, because I think our era growing up, we saw all the posters of the Lamborghini Countach, and now they're coming back. They're going to make another one. But I mean, if you had a white Lamborghini like that, you could just look at, that'd be hard to not be happy when you saw it.
Yeah. One final thing. I was reading in Car and Driver, I think it was. They were driving a Lamborghini, and he said everyone that drove the car agreed that while they were driving the car, they all had the exact same thought. This might be the best car I've ever driven. I hope I don't hit the wall. They loved it. Everything was great. And then all of a sudden they were very afraid of it. So I thought that was.
I had a news article here I had brought with, and I don't find it right now, but it was. I think it's on this one right here.
This might be the best car I've ever driven. I hope I don't hit that wall.
It was Elon Musk and the Stellantis chairman, John Elkann, and they were talking about vehicles. And so they're in Italy when they have this conversation, and they've found common ground agreeing that Ferrari should never be automated.
Oh, sure.
And then the line that I think it was Elon said, he said Musk is one of the industry biggest advocates on self-driving technology, but he and Elkann agreed it wasn't right for Ferrari. That would be sad to have a Ferrari autonomous car, Elkann said. The essence of having a Ferrari is to drive it. While cars replace horses, there are still occasions that people use the animals for transportation. It's right on the logo, Musk said. And the crowd excited and erupted in applause, looking at the Ferrari logo with the horse on it. And so that was pretty good. I did get a text from my wife based on our earlier conversation in the show about the rock chips.
Did she accept your apology?
She says a gift and a I am sorry is in order, I think.
Oh, okay.
I got a text. There's been a lot of live texting going on today between Russ being out today. Hope he's feeling up quick. He said he feels kind of cruddy today, but
he can type, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, his fingers are working. He was live texting the show to us, making sure we didn't miss any cues. But we miss you, Russ. Heal up quick. We'll get the team back together here next week, hopefully.
All right, there you go. That is it for the Under the Hood Show. Thank you so much. Subscribe and